Hello, Brabs. I think we're going to crack the 100-page mark today. Let's get right into it, bruv. Chapter 14. What should you do? You are all eager to know what you shall do. You who are so casual about your own death. We are always rather amused when a soul arrives with the idea that now there will be a real contribution to heavenly society. This attitude is one that most men assume, even very ordinary souls whose lives on earth were not of the least importance. Somehow their ego has been freed and they feel their superior quality will at once be recognized. When we speak to them of study of labor, of hard mental work, they are indignant and usually reply, "What? Do you mean that I have to do the same things here that I did all my life?" We explain that there is a vast difference between our labor and manual labor. They are very sullen at this. They declare that all their lives have been spent in the most tiresome labor of earning a living. Now they hope to have a rest. When we then ask if they would prefer to sleep for a time, oh no, not the doctor's sleep here. They're not usually eager to lose consciousness. Then we ask how they think they are to spend their time. As a rule, the answer is having some excitement and amusement while dead. Minus the dead part. We see that there is no point in pursuing the subject, so we leave them to find out from their friends just what the conditions of life are on this plane. Many will simply exist, roaming about their own town, where they lived, making no attempt to rise above the earth vibrations. Wait, so they're in the etheric plane, but they're still in their hometown. So they're basically saying they are ghosts. So they're going to their same home. They're doing all the same stuff. All right. Here on our plane, we are unconscious of Earth life unless we lower our vibration purposely and with the intention of studying some aspect of Earth life, say a new invention, a work of art, a great political movement, or some human problem, where our mentality can function more freely. Otherwise, we prefer to remain on our own plane, where our mentality can function more freely. When we are lowered to a wavelength of Earth's level, we are not able to think any more clearly than you do. We are subject to the same confusion of thought, and we are obliged to ascend to our own level in order clearly to digest the matters we are concerned in. Newly arrived souls are like children. They simply wish to roam about the old places they are familiar with and see what their death has meant to their fellow citizens and friends. This is an amusement of short durations. The gap we leave is at once closed, and we are but a memory. Only our family are concerned with us, from the highest to the humblest. That is the story. Once a soul finds that he is forgotten, he wishes to make some sort of contact that will give him a new interest in life. He then calls on those who received him at his death, usually his parents, with whom he is obliged to live. If they are on our plane, out of love, they share all with him. He can roam about the earth plane so long as he can manage to think where he wishes to be. That is usually the place he lived in. I am speaking now of the ordinary individual, the man who has never been far from his hometown. He cannot even move from the place unless his friends in our realm come and get him. They concentrate on where they wish to fetch him, and their combined power of thought, if he relaxes and does not set his mind against theirs, will be sufficiently strong to bring them to their destination. You will now see how unfair it is for a man to impose himself for long on others without making an effort to learn how to help himself. We have very few arrivals who understand the least thing about life here. The conspiracy of silence among those who do know is one of the amazing manifestations of man's insatiable love of power. Those who are initiates in both the religious and the secular orders, of which there are many, have sworn to enslave mankind in this way. It is one of their most terrible vows. Any revelation of the secrets of life after death used to be punished by the most awful torture, in many cases by death. This is why humanity has been allowed to go on in the stupid way that is now becoming a menace to civilization itself. The author and the one who is transcribing this are acting in the belief that the time has come when these old barbarites, barbarites, come on, Bubba, has come. The author and the one who is transcribing this are acting in the belief that the time has come when these old barbarities can be defied. Science is now in a position to prove the truth of these facts. In a few years, television will be in use. The radio is already as familiar as the telephone. In short, radioactivity is becoming mechanized. It is only a step further to the knowledge of our system of communication. We are now compelled to use the wireless vibrations of a human being, a medium. Soon you will see the wisdom of learning how to speak with us by mechanical means. Then we can give you such proof of ourselves that you will be glad to cooperate with us in fitting people to make use of their minds constructively, so that when they come here they will be able to continue their progress. I shall devote another chapter to the manner in which we would suggest your setting the stage for the time when you will begin to understand that you must go on living after the death of the body. Then perhaps all this waste of energy, thought, and labor will end, and a very much more constructive method of life after death can take the place of the conditions we now find are becoming intolerable. I have digressed and resumed my description of an average man's reaction to life here, with the feeling that we here are perhaps too optimistic, but we are so overburdened by the stupidity of the hordes of average men who are congesting this plane that I have doubtless been too hopeful. The average man congests your plane as well as ours. He will only put an obstacle in the way of any enlightenment. If it means giving time, labor, money, or thought to a project, he fears change. He lives in a paradise of hope that somehow he will not have to exert himself after he finishes with life. We know him only too well. He is the most terrible of all the problems. Now that I have shown his attitude on arriving here, I must show you why we strive to enlighten him. We are prompted by motives of self-interest. Unless we can get rid of this blockade of average men by teaching them how to reincarnate, they will be here forever. Added to them will be those who are already morons, in the spiritual sense, whom the United States is creating by the millions in its mechanical civilization. Average women I have not spoken of. They are no better, no worse than men. Women, however, do wish to progress, and they are far more willing to work. Only those of a low mental caliber with no willpower are hopeless cases. Drug addicts and women with such degraded appetites as to be unable to use their minds to rise above the memory of old habits. Just think about that. A drug-addicted person that dies, and then they're in the etheric world, and they're withdrawing. How does that work? When we realize that you, on your plane, put a premium on the single-track mind that you delight in making your students as nearly alike as possible, and your whole civilization a standardized one, we understand the reasons for the very unpromising lot we have to deal with. We here are trying to help you not only because we should like to make this a place where life has some charm and variety, but because we wish to make the United States of America a place where fine souls may reincarnate with the prospect of expressing themselves in a civilization that will be in the van of progress. I don't know this word, van. At the present time, the best of the Americans here feel that this is hopeless. I wish I could speak with greater enthusiasm of the land we love and cherish, but I must in all honesty confess that it is fast deteriorating into a shop or mill. None of the finer social graces or the more noble aspects of enlightened society are to be seen. A premium is being set upon grossness, and the average mind is either a specialist, dulled with single-tracked activity and thought, or so stupid and uninspired as to be a bore. What is it that I am asking you to do? First, I ask you to read this book and its forerunner. Open the door. As I just dropped the candle. Yeah, I'm planning on doing that, Bubba. Next, I ask you to give credence to what I say. I'm reading it, baby girl. then to rouse yourself and make the contents of these books known to others. I'm making videos for YouTube. I ask you to use your mind in various ways that will influence your immediate neighbors. To become more... Why is this guy writing in the British sense with the added you to words? Shouldn't she be telegraphing it in his English vernacular? Or maybe he used that back in the 1800s. Anyway, to become more alive mentally. You, as a reader of these lines, prove that you are not the average man, but you are in touch with those who are. You can make an impression on the men I have described. You can use as much power of argument in this as you do in the discussion of your political theories and candidates for office. A concerted movement to find out what life after death is like is the only salvation for you and for us. You cannot give too much thought and time to such a cause. This for your own benefit, even more than ours, for ours. I hope, therefore, that you will take these words in the spirit in which they are written. I do. Adieu. Adieu. All right, we got time for more. What time is it? Chapter 15, There Shall Be Light. We are not prophets. We are but men. We are no soothsayers. We are only human beings who are living in hope of a new age that shall be one of reason, based on scientific truth. What is truth? That which can be tested and proved to be the result of law. True, the word fact comes under the definition, but a fact is by no means always a truth. We live here by law alone, the natural law that governs the mind in its actions and reactions. We may call it spirit. It does not change its action to give it another name. The soul is the immortal entity, the residing particle of divinity that is the life force. Here we are unable to follow it further in its manifestations than its residence in the etheric body of man. Among our teachers are men and women who have been able to discard their etheric body, and in doing so find themselves still expressing their personality, but on a higher plane of consciousness and with a spiritual body. That body, while apparently the same, possesses a vibratory rate so much higher than they are invisible to us who are in etheric form. That they are invisible to us who are in etheric form. They speak of a further attenuated vehicle for the soul, which they call a celestial body. Why we should take on these finer vibratory bodies, we do not know, unless it is that they give one relief and freedom from the heavier and lower vibrations of the great mass of undeveloped souls on the etheric plane. In earth life, a man who has material riches can purchase quietude and solitude. He can keep the poor and ignorant, the mass of violent-minded people away from him. On the etheric plane, only your own mind can do that. You must be able to elevate your thoughts to a higher level in order to be able to enjoy quiet and calm. We who have dedicated ourselves to the task of trying to raise the level of the mass mind know how almost beyond endurance the average mentality is. We have no patience, however, with the selfish souls who care nothing for what becomes of the other fellow. They are often highly developed spiritual men and women, but they give of themselves only to their own kind. The spiritual plane is very largely populated with them. The theory is taught by many metaphysical cults that you can save only yourself, and in doing that, you have fulfilled your whole duty. No account is taken of the fact that the mass mind is the weight that, in the end, will pull down the whole race unless it progresses. If these people had been in control of earthly life, we should have had no public education, no public care of the sick, the poor, or the crippled. Such a philosophy is the most destructive of any of the human mind has conceived. Far better simply to take "I am my brother's keeper" for a slogan and leave the rest to chance. Here we are not making the headway we could. Because of these smug souls who feel they can find a way of becoming an important factor in the scheme of the cosmos by ignoring all other souls and removing themselves as far as possible from contact with the masses. It is as if a man who disliked humanity committed suicide to enter this plane rather than to live in a world that had so many undesirable people in it as has the United States and that all countries have always had. Here he would be worse off than ever, and the next thing he would consider would be elevating his thoughts to a point where he could rid himself of his etheric body and enter the more exclusive realm, the spiritual plane of consciousness. We are very much alarmed at the way the knowledge of our plane is being kept from the people. The various religious prejudices against man's knowing what happens to him when he leaves his mortal body are a crime against humanity. This is particularly so now that the race has come to a point where almost universal education is the rule. Especially is this true in our own country. All religions are of the greatest value, and a knowledge of our plane should make the followers of each more loyal and more intent upon the preservation of this institution, of their institutions. If some modifications are necessary, that need not destroy the creeds nor the lovely forms and symbols that enrich the worship. We here are for a broad and tolerant view of man's relation to deity, but we bow to the noble efforts that all religious bodies make on humanity's behalf. They are among the most priceless of all man's treasures. We also make our acknowledgments to the numerous bodies of students of modern metaphysics under the various names of their societies. Those teachers and students of modern philosophy are doing far greater things than even they know in preparing the mind for functioning at its best here. I also wish to say that every father and mother, teacher and guardian who instills into young minds the idea of the immortality of the soul, the perfection of divine law, and the power of man to rise in the scale of being is doing a work the value of which only we can compute. By contrast, all those who by speech or in print tear down or try to cast negation over those primal beliefs, which are the soul's deepest and most sacred instincts, are enemies to their kind. We have no reason to think those clever intellectuals who have been sending us spiritual morons as the result of their negative teachings. They have made this a practice only through their exhibitionism and vanity. They have been apparently in revolt against Puritanism, but they have only succeeded in corrupting and degrading their followers. The ego needs to know that the trend should be to follow something higher than itself. No great leaders have appeared out of this intellectual movement. The one mind that started the wave of back to instinct was only a Central European specialist in abnormalities. Now we have his work to undo here. On your plane, his cures have not lessened the number of inmates of sanatoriums, asylums, hospitals, and prisons. Quite the contrary. A whole new class of self-conscious hypochondriacs and neurotics have sprung up under his banner. The criminal finds justification at the hands of the psychiatrist, and the corruption of the young has multiplied the deceased, the diseased, and the degraded. Here we receive you, all of you. No publicity in your favor, no money power, no camouflage of any sort can hide what you are. The simple souls who have obeyed the rules of decency and plain honesty with a measure of neighborly kindness from the aristocracy here. Form the aristocracy here. Pardon? Such a man may be ignorant, but if he will, he may complete his education here. Light will come to him and illumine his mind so that his onward march will take on a faster tempo. Those who had wealth on earth and used it for all are already saints. We have little to teach them. Those who manfully met the struggle of earth life with courage and fair dealing are our helpers. You who fear the light may well turn a ray on your own minds while you have time to fit yourselves for progress here. The darkness of the minds that we are getting here now is due, paradoxically, to the beam that has been shed upon the civilization of our land in this era of mad pursuit of greed, power, egotism, and cheap notoriety. Rest assured, you are coming into the fierce light that beats about the throne of your own personality. Whoa. Let's see how many pages are in this next chapter. We got time. We're at the 19-minute mark. Should be enough. Chapter 16, This is the World. There's a popular idea that eternity is something in space, and that a spirit is a floating particle of humanity that somehow adapts itself to the atmosphere and there resides forever. This is the pictured hereafter that the average man and woman who come here seem to have. They are shocked to see the same objects of nature and to realize that they will see nothing that has not been conceived and perceived in the earth life of mankind. Our buildings are designed by those minds who knew such edifices in their mortal lives. We can make an advance only if it already exists in a mind that is capable of developing a model of it in the ether. Then, by instructing those who have been builders on earth, the structure is erected by many minds working together to produce the same impression of the ether. If you get the principle of etheric creative power in your mind, you can easily follow up the process. Here we are all more or less dependent on the goodwill of our fellows. More on this subject can be explained in the book I hope to write called Etheric Creation. I shall only try here to impress upon you the value of making your plans now for the home you wish to have here. Most men love the home that has been their longest residence in earth life. Others wish to go back to their parents' home. Still others prefer a perfectly new place with the many elegant appointments that they have always admired but never possessed. Some even love to live in our public homes, which are a little like your hotels. We are beginning to get apartment dwellers now, and they seem to wish the same sort of home here. This is not so easy to provide. One huge structure has been created for these people. Just one apartment building has been created for all the etheric body. But each has a different idea of what he desires, so we have not been successful thus far. Numerous families love to live like farmers. They wish to look on fields and wooded land. They are able to create a small portion of an estate, but the task is too heavy for the average family, and we are obliged to get helpers for them. We have our sights and our plans, and we organize life here much as you do. We have no need of health, fire, or street cleaning departments. We simply make a community of souls who are governed by those who are so much older residents here that their advice and counsel is often sought. Naturally, we have no need of police or prisons. There is no possible way of confining the soul. He roams where he will, and if he is a nuisance, we can only use argument or moral suasion as a weapon. Many people are afraid to trust themselves to life here. They prefer to be put to sleep. We always ask if that is their choice. Many sleep for a century or more before the soul stirs them into action again. These, when they do wake, are our best helpers because of their refreshed minds and clear outlook. These people remain for a time near the earth plane, travel about visiting their old haunts and getting an idea of the changes that have taken place during their long coma. They are always highly amused at the change of dress, and at this time a good deal shocked at the manners of the present age. Especially in the crowded cities, we have to beg them to remain awake. Their first reaction is one of distaste for human beings so unlike those they knew. They cannot understand what has happened to turn people into such hard and selfish egotists. Men, as they knew them, had a community of interest and shared civic responsibility. Now they see the cheating each of the other, the lack of respect for law, and the general letdown in social and political morals, and they become afraid of their present fellow Americans. We have to argue with them and present the few here who we know are still clinging to the old standards in order to persuade them to help us. We need all the teachers and willing minds we can muster to control the masses of poorly disciplined and selfish souls who are now coming over. The greatest need is for help among our victims of the World War. We also have many accident cases, which amount to a total of something like 75,000 people a year. We are only human, and we cannot pretend that we accomplish miracles. We are too few now, even to keep the level of efficiency where it was up to 1914. We are slipping behind other nations who still remain a sense of spiritual values and whose nationals come to the etheric plane with a will to work. The American is the most mentally lazy of any race in the temperate zone. He expects a gadget or an electric button to do every trick. There are no gadgets or buttons here, only mind. These indolent people may be of more than average mentality to start with, but they were trained as specialists and so are unable to think upon any but the old familiar lines. Variety of thought and interest while in earth life should be the aim of each being. Your world is not a pigeonhole. It is a planet that contains not only nature's glorious and various manifestations, but works of man in such variety as to furnish a lifetime of interest in contemplating one small part of his achievement. We here are amazed at the indifference to beauty which is characteristic of most modern Americans. They are only able to think of themselves or their job, whatever it is. No breadth of culture seems to have been attempted by the average citizen. We who, by lowering our vibrations, can visit your museums, parks, beaches, concert halls, theaters, art galleries, great buildings, and private homes and gardens, we are never weary of the spectacles. We find that the modern American rarely beholds the beauty that is set before him. The few who can still appreciate beauty and greatness are so rare as to be marked for distinction. We here believe that beauty can and does keep the soul above the common level. We know its great healing power. We are keen to see among mortals a better understanding as to the importance of inculcating in the young a desire for and appreciation of all that is most beautiful in nature and in the productions of the human spirit. Your world is here also, although you will bring just so much of it as your mental realm consists of, and no more. A wider view of your mortal world is one of your greatest needs and will prove an equally great blessing. All right, cheerio, Brabs. Cheerio.